We're going to talk about the tech transfer process as I view it. Now, you'll find a lot of people have different points of view. And remember from last week, the rule of thumb, the one thing you want to remember is something that Rogers pointed out to us, and that was that first, if we're going to transfer a technology or diffuse it, people have to have some knowledge about that type of technology or have some knowledge of technology or science or medicine, whatever the field is. And then they become aware or they become persuaded that, gee, let's look into this a little bit. So there was knowledge, awareness, or persuasion, trial. You go out and you do something and you see, hey, it worked, and then confirmation, which then gets you to the point of deciding to do that. Well, of course, DARPA, with its work on robotic soldiers, has contests, and so they're having trials to see if to confirm that they meet the requirements that they would like to have these devices to have. Now we're going to look at the tech transfer process, and in a more detailed manner than just those knowledge, awareness, trial, and confirmation, and the idea of the acceptance curve and so on. So let's look at some of the elements that make that up. We got a diagram again you're going to be looking at, and you'll see the product or concept has to find a network of people that might be interested in whatever it is. And you find the network, and this network could involve individuals, like from an NGO, a non-governmental organization, firms or agencies in governments. It could be associations. That then introduces you to the market. Remember, when you think of your design process, once you see what the market is, you see what the market forces are. That begins to help you get those design parameters or criteria in place. And then you plan a marketing analysis. How in the world are we going to get this out there? Because we have something and people don't necessarily know about it or want it. You see this all the time in the United States on television with drug advertisements. A drug company can come up with a new drug, a pharmaceutical cure. Well, they can go to doctors and try to convince them that, hey, you don't give this to your patient. But what they do is they go out and they create a demand. They put it on TV and they say, hey, if you got this problem, take this drug. And by the way, these are the side effects. But go to your doctor and ask him about that. So they're creating a demand, and that's part of their market analysis and plan. And of course, it requires some research and development, and then that too, as a result of understanding your market, you refine your product and concept. That's why the feedback line there. Well, you get it going, and then when you start looking at your market, you think, well, gee whiz, what are the markets? Well, there's government. Of course, there's all the people in your culture. There's institutional structures and functions. There may be highway people, water, sewage, handling, internet, whatever the case may be. And, of course, you have to understand your competition. Well, if you're opposed to a particular thing, you might work with competition. You certainly will want to go to culture. If the government, if it's culture, well, gee whiz, start a grassroots group like Save the Valley we talked about for the Ohio River Basin Energy Study. That's how they got heard. They used grassroots. You might say they formed a non-governmental organization, which happened to be, in this case, the Orbs Project. This continually refines your market. Well, if it turns out that you've been able to create enough design parameters that they're not going to be able to meet, then you've pretty well stopped it in its tracks. Or if you've you have to market people to understand certain constraints that you think should be in that design, they go back to the drawing board, so to speak, and see what they can do. And they may say, hey, that's it. We can't do anymore. As a consequence, if indeed, then they are able to find the market still, and there's a market share that the company can pick up, then they will refine their fiscal analysis. And here again, this is a place where you can play a role by, for example, if you can make the costs go up. And I'll tell you a great example of that was the nuclear power industry. Because of the Atomic Energy Act, it turns out if you're going to build a nuclear power plant, there has to be 2 public hearings, which are organized under the concept of administrative law. So it's like a court hearing. And the first siting meeting has to do with siting the plant. Can you take this piece of land and can you build the plant here? The second one is, okay, you got the land and we're going to build the plant and now we want to operate it. So, as you can see, this goes there at each of these 2 points, there's going to be a fiscal issue because, well, they got to hire lawyers and they got to hire A&E firms to help them get the data they need for this hearing. Now, it turns out that if you could delay, particularly at the second hearing where the plant is going to be built, and then it's got to get an operating license, if you can delay the acquisition of that operating license, that is very much in your favor. If you can delay the use, because the people who bought the whatever it is they're going to buy, and if you delay it, they're paying what you might call opportunity costs. They've invested in something. It isn't producing output. It isn't giving the return on their investment that they anticipated because of this delay. And that creates what's called an opportunity cost. And, pretty soon, because it turns out, well, gee, if I'd have taken that same money and invested in something else, I would have got a lot better return. That's what I want to do. They're going to say, phooey. And as a matter of fact, if you look at part of the reason that the nuclear industry in the United States was stopped in its tracks, it's because utility people said, we've built this plant, we've put $1 billion into it or whatever, we're paying interest on that, we can't put it in our rate base. We can't charging our customer for that cost of that equipment until it starts producing electricity. We're losing here. Our opportunity costs are growing, and so we're not going to bother. We can build a gas plant running on natural gas, coal, you name it, oil, biomass, whatever. We're not going to do it because of this time delay caused rising costs, and that stopped in its tracks. So, is it possible for you to make your injection at that point? Well, of course, the next item on this diagram is formalizing a tech transfer plan to get that out there. And of course, that goes back into that relates to marketing. Marketing and technology transfer diffusion are very similar, very well closely related. You'll also notice that comparisons are made with regard to, that's why that feedback is back there with your original market analysis. And then, of course, you figure out, well, what's it going to cost to do this transfer? There's a cost for moving the product out into use and into implementation. So this kind of gives you a way to look at the process of moving a product from design to ultimate use and some of the steps that are involved in this business of knowledge, awareness, trial, and confirmation, so that you can see where you can inject yourself in here to make sure you're heard. And usually it's going to be through either dealing with what we call a significant other, which we'll bring up later next time, or through a group. Like in our Ohio River Basin Energy Study, it was the power of a grassroots group that went to the United States congressman that got that project off the ground so that they could be heard by the utilities who were moving their technology into that group's community. So anyway, next time we get together, we're going to talk a little bit about the role of government in all this. Bye for now.